What's up, YouTube? Georgia Silver Hunter back, and on a recent trip to my Wells Fargo, one of the tellers said a customer had recently dropped off $75 in pennies and mentioned that it was from like her grandfather's coin collection. And she asked me if I wanted to get them, and of course I did. And what you see in this front row is all individually wrapped pennies. None of them have writing on them that I remember, but maybe a few of them did. From weighing a handful of them, I believe they're going to be mostly rolls of copper, which means 1982 and earlier. The back row was all rolls that had some sort of writing on them indicating dates, and the few that I checked did appear to be accurate. So we may have $75 worth of copper here to go through. I'll be using the Strike It Rich with Pocket Change book to search as I go, and I will be opening and going through every roll of pennies, and I'll be sure to bring you in as we find interesting things, whether it be DDOs, DDRs, just complete rolls of BU coins, what have you. But this is going to take me some time. I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to completely film it, but I'm really excited to jump into this. And worst case, I have somewhere, like I said, between probably $70 and $75 worth of copper here in front of me, which I'm super excited about. So let's jump into it. All right, well, I went ahead and pulled at least the rolls that I could find there that said 59 on them. We had a 159 plain, we had 359 Ds, and as you can see, I wanted to bring you in to give you an idea what this hunt might look like, but this looks like it might be an entire roll of BU 59D copper pennies. And of course, I do have out my Strike It Rich with Pocket Change book. We'll be looking for the repunch mint marks, possible D in the dates. Of course, this is the one we really want to find, is that 1959D mule that has the wheat penny reverse. Wheat penny reverse, there we go. That's worth quite a bit of money, especially if we find one in uncirculated condition. But this is this type of stuff that's going to come out of these rolls. It's hard to believe they're still in red BU condition, especially in a wrapper like this. So let me jump into these. If I find anything, I'll be sure to bring you in, but I'm excited. If nothing else, we have a bunch of really, really nice copper sitting in front of us. So I got through that first roll, and I found 3 coins that were interesting. They were all the same. They all showed the same little, I'll call it a defect. I believe it could be a repunch mint mark, even though I have checked the Strike It Rich with Pocket Change book, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. There is a couple of RPMs, or repunch mint marks, where we've got a D, but you can see sort of the full D underneath here. We've got one where the D is kind of up above, and we've got one where it looks like maybe there was a D or some sort of extra 9 up here in the 9. And mine don't look like that. I couldn't find one on Variety Vista or PCGS that looked like that either. But what I do have is the little base of a stem here that is raised metal. And you can see it a little better there with that light, and I can try to pass a shadow over it with my finger. That may help. No, it really doesn't. But that is exhibited on all 3 of these pennies that I pulled. Here's another one just to show you. So if you've seen this before, you know what it is, let me know. It does seem to be something that is repeated, so it is not post-mint damage. It's not my imagination. I have found it on 3 separate coins, but it could be like the base of a P maybe. I'm not exactly sure. Let me know if you've ever seen this before or could help identify it. So I've wrapped up going through the 1959s, and then I had one more roll of BUs, and I did find 2 more 59s that had that funky little leg on the D, so that's going to push us up to 5 of those. I've put them aside. I've also gone through, I think I found all of them. I might have missed a roll or 2 of all of our 60s, and just to go through them really quick, we've got a 60D. This one says large date, 61 plain, 62, 63D, 64, 65, 67, 68, what does that say? Plain, 68P, 68S, 68S, we have plain, we have D. What else do we have down here? Sorry, I was distracted there. 1969S, looks like we got 3 rolls of those. Now, a lot of these rolls do have kind of that rolled crimped end, and almost all of them are brown, but I did have a couple. I'll see if I can find them down here. Got a couple with some BU looking enders here. So we may end up with a couple of rolls that do have BUs in them. I will pull you in for those rolls as we open them. There's another one, 69D. And do we have an S? I can't tell. Anyway, I'm going to get these open. I'll pull you in for the BU rolls just to show you how pretty they are. And if I do have some interesting, actually I know from 60D all the way up to 69D, there's a bunch of DDOs and RPMs and things we'll be looking for. So if I happen to find those, I'll bring you in as well. Just finished going through this 1962. I have been checking to make sure every single date is right, and 62 is one of those ones that does have a DDO in the date. And I'm just bringing you in here because I got excited briefly, but this is obviously just a little bit of machine doubling. You know, as you're looking here for that double die, typically you're going to see it in the notch of the 6 and the 9, and you may even see that second 9 kind of very clearly come through the leg here. But what we have here is a little shelf, which means that's machine strike or machine doubling, and unfortunately it's nothing special, so it'll go back in the roll. But so far we've gone through nothing but copper, which is always exciting. Well, as expected, this is slow going, but I did want to go ahead and open this 1967. It says it's AU, and I do see a pretty shiny ender there. So let's just get this one opened up on camera just to see how AU these are. Now, the 1967 doesn't have any errors or varieties that I'm aware of. So we're just going to take a look and see how nice these are. And they do. I mean, I've got an ender there, but we are looking at some pretty nice looking pennies here, or cents, as some of you like to remind me in the comments whenever I say the word penny. But these things are gorgeous, and I have a whole series of, I've got like 2 or 3 sets of penny books. I will be pulling some of the BU ones from here and trying to upgrade all my penny albums. But I'm not going to go through all of them. It does look like a fairly good AU roll here. Yeah. So anyway, there they come. So far, it's been all copper. We found a couple of rolls that have been misstuffed, meaning like in the last roll, I had another 1967 brown. It had a 1976 inside of it. Still copper. Just whoever was sorting them was a little dyslexic. So anyway, the hunt continues, and so far, nothing too exciting outside of those 1959D potential RPMs. So we've been slow and steady getting through our 60s, and you can see we got a lot of red 60s here at like 68S. We got a couple of full rolls. We got a really nice full roll of the 1969D. So we're going to have some really nice BU red stuff in here. But I'm bringing you in. I've got 3 rolls of 69S's here on the end. And for those of you that don't know, there is a pretty decently high dollar 1969S with a reverse counter clash that we'll be looking for. But I'm bringing you in for this one. If you didn't know, there is a super high dollar 1969S double die obverse. And you're going to see super heavy doubling in Liberty, the In God We Trust, and down in the date 1969S. The reason I'm making a big deal out of this is I found a coin. I really want this to be that double die, but I believe this is just really heavy strike doubling. You may also notice I've gotten out my bigger microscope because looking at all these pennies is becoming a little bit difficult with the smaller scope. So I wanted some real estate on this. But when we look at this guy, you can see we don't really have much doubling. Let me pull this down a little bit out of the glare. We don't have much doubling on the 6 or the 9, but you can see this. We've got, 2 serifs on this S, but it's very severely strike doubling because it's a sharp step down and then almost like smeared metal. We can see that on the 9 as well, and a little bit here on the 1. Now, if you guys disagree, this is definitely a coin I'm going to just put aside in case I'm wrong, because I would hate to be wrong. And when we get over here to Liberty, we've even got a little bit of light doubling on the word Liberty, but I think this just makes an even bigger case that this is strike doubling, because we don't, in fact, have 2 individual letters. We just have a letter that looks like it's been, as the dies were struck, they slid a little bit, causing the strike doubling. So either the planchet slipped or the die slipped, one of the 2. I forget how it's made, but anyway, I thought it was an interesting penny. Wanted to bring in for it, and I wish it was an $18,000 1969S. So I'm bringing you right back in for these 69S's, and if you guys are curious, because I'm having to look at so many of the same coin, I'm actually doing a little trick here where I'm using a nickel wrap to line up lots of pennies and check for the same errors over and over and over again. But the very next coin, we've got crazy strike doubling again that shows up mainly just here in the 1969 S. So definitely some strike doubling, maybe even all came from the same roll. Well, that gets us through the 60s, and this is what's left after I've wrapped some stuff up. I did find 4 of those 1969 S kind of machine doublers, so I pulled those aside. I've got a little bit of red stuff in here, especially in the 68D. I think this was just some 68s. I'll pull the red out separate when I re-roll these. I did end up with a 67 BU, 69, 69D, 69S, all BU red, and one that I don't have a tube for. So that's going to do it for the 60s, and we're going to go ahead and jump into the 70s. And man, this hunt is going to take a very long time. Okay, well, I've sorted through all of the rolls that had writing on them, and this is going to be all of our 70s coins. Now, I've kind of jogged these in a specific way so that you know whether or not I'll be hunting each of those years for like double die obverses, repunch mint marks, die clashes, those sorts of things. The 70s, there's nothing to look for, so they're pushed to the side, but everything else that's kind of jogged in, there's going to be something for me to look for. So this means I'll be looking at 100, 200, 300, and 50 pennies under the scope. I'm excited by the 71 and the 72 because these look like they're original bank wrapped rolls. I'm going to check the price on eBay before I open them just to see what they might be worth. But I know the 72 has a bunch of varieties on it, so we're going to be more than likely looking through those. When we get up here for the 73s, of course, the 73s do have some things we want to look for. The 73D does as well. As the 74s. The 74S and the 75s, nothing really for us to look for, but I'll just make sure they're full rolls. When we get into the rest of these, the 76s do, 77s, 78s, and 79s. There's nothing really to look for, so I'll just be counting these to make sure that we've got 50 of each one in a roll, and of course I'll be separating my red copper from my brown copper and rewrapping them. So I'm excited to get into these. Hopefully we find a few things. Worst case, again, we've got a ton of copper on the table. So it's been really slow going. I'm pretty much through my first little row of 1970s pennies, and I got down to these two, the 71 and the 72, that look like they were bank wrapped. You can tell from the edges here that this has been pried open and restuffed. So this roll's likely already been searched as well, but I'm hoping they're all BU coins in there. And what I'll do is I'll take them out of these and probably put them in some nice tubes just to preserve them, and we'll keep on going. And as you can see a little bit over here on the side, what I'm doing is just laying out all of my BU copper and re-rolling all the brown stuff. The other thing I'm starting to think is because these are rolled by date, this was probably a collector that's already searched them because I haven't found a whole lot, but I typically don't in pennies. So hopefully I'll get through these because now I'm actually getting more and more interested in all the stuff that's not labeled. So we'll get through these and keep moving through the 70s.
"20 minutes later."
So it took a little time, but it was obviously unrolled previously, which is really hard to get out of the wrapper there, these 1971s. But as you can see, these things are BU and gorgeous. At least most of them. Look at that. Absolutely wonderful. I'm going to go through each one of these looking for the DDO that exists on this guy, or the several DDOs that exist on this guy. And hopefully we find one because those pennies are gorgeous. So we finished making it through the 70s, and everything you see out here is kind of our BU red, or maybe a couple of red-brown ones that I've kept aside that we'll roll up separately. A couple of these we have complete rolls, like the 74D, that might be the 74S. 74, I know we got a full roll. 72 full roll. 71 full roll. And down here we had a 1970 full roll of BU. Super nice pennies. So we're going to go ahead and get this cleaned up, rolled separately, and then we're going to jump into the 80s and see what that holds in store for us. Everything you see here is labeled as 80p. Everything here is 81, I think, P, or plain, as they like to say, so no mint mark. And then we've got a fair amount of different 82s. It looks mainly like they're Phillies. There might be some Denvers in there, though. So we're going to check those out. And, of course, on the 82s, we'll be sure if we have any Denvers, looking for that small date Denver on a copper planchet, because that's worth a small fortune. But we're going to go ahead and go through those next, and I'll do the same thing. I'll keep the really nice red stuff aside. The brown, I'll just roll up and we'll do a full count of all the copper at the end. So I went ahead and got through all the 1982s, and I think it's pretty interesting. Now, they all did appear to be copper, but I've separated them by pretty much red/BU. I've got a couple of little piles here of kind of red-brown. Over here is all my brown copper. Now, everything up here is 1982 large date. Okay, and whoever wrapped these, they did not differentiate between large date and small date. And I don't know if that was on purpose or by accident, because at the end of the day, all I found in there was about 7 1982 small dates, and you can see here we've got that very defined 2 on there, that little sharp edge on the 2. So those were all small date. There's a couple of nice red-brown ones in there, and then they were misstuffed. We had a couple of 1982 large date Denvers that were misstuffed in there. So for a breakdown of why you probably see more large dates in your penny rolls from the bank, this is why. This is even a collector who had them all rolled up. And as you can see, we had way more large dates than anything else. All right, well, there's all the BU stuff from the 80s. I've got a lot of the random stuff that came out of rolls over here on the side that just didn't belong in the wrappers that they were in. And I'm going to get all these 80s wrapped up, but you can see we've got over here 1980. There's another 1980. We got a bunch of, I think, 81 rolls, and then a bunch of 82 red rolls. And then I didn't get a complete roll at the end. Some of this is a little brown, some brown-red. There's a couple of red in there. I'll have to put those aside because I can't make a whole roll out of them. But quite a lot of AU, BU stuff in there, and the real hunt now is about to begin. We've got a ton of unmarked rolls up there, and just to show you guys, a lot of these rolls are going to be completely stuffed with copper. 154, 155 does mean that we are going to have pretty much a whole roll of copper, or we're short a couple. All right, well, what do we have here? That's a 1998, which we'll be excited to get into. There you go. There's 126. We know those are all copper-plated zinc. So anyway, excited to jump into them. So let me get this wrapped up, and I'll bring in like any other normal hunt, or if we find some pretty interesting rolls as I go, I'll bring in as I get them unwrapped. So I've only been through 2 rolls. The very first roll was 100% zinc. In roll number 2, though, it was entirely kind of early 60s, 61s, and then there was a bunch of 68s, and then there were a lot of 70s, 74Ds, 75s. There were a couple of 72s we're going to check for DDOs, and of course, because this came from a collection, I'm also still finding a lot of really nice red cents, and I'm going to keep those separate. We'll do them by year up here on the mat. But I've also gotten out some cups, and I'm going to keep track of everything that we find here, just so we can weigh it all out and see how all of this change factors out here for the end of the hunt. So I have lost track of how many rolls in I am, but probably 8 or 9, maybe 10, and I've got 2 rolls I want to talk about. I've got a full roll of 1960 Ds, and we've got the small date and the large date variety, and it's a pretty good even mix, and I just don't find a lot of the small date, so I want to show you guys the difference. And the roll right before it, we got a little bit of copper in it, lots of zinc, but I hit this little vein, and the glare is really, really bright here, but of 2009s that have the commemorative reverses. So I haven't actually even gone through all of them. These all appear to be the professional life, and it looked like I did have some Phillies and some Denvers. Well, there's the formative years. That looks really good. Let's see if we've got the DDR on this guy. We do not. If we did, oops, my finger keeps sticking, you'd see a bunch of an extra thumb coming through here, or an extra finger down here on the bottom. But these are in really, really good shape for the most part. We got a little ring of death on this one, but they're pretty high quality, so obviously somebody was pulling these aside to collect them. But I'll finish going through these, and if I have any DDRs, I'll be sure to bring you in. And really quickly, those 1960 Denvers, I'll show you how to identify the small date and the large date real quick. Now, I've also already gone through all of these because I believe there is a repunch mint mark and a DDO on this one, and we didn't have either. So there's 2 ways to identify the large date and the small date. The easy way is to look at the number 9 and see where the curl goes. And if this curl loops around and points at the bottom of the 6, it's a large date. The other way to tell is to line up, and this is a little bit hard to do while I hold the camera, but if you can get a line like I have on my scope and kind of line it up to the top of the 1 and the top of the 0 and see how much of the 6 goes over top of it, it extends pretty far. And I'll get the small date out here. Here is the small date. We'll put this one under the scope. Back out here a little bit. Hopefully you guys can see that red line I've got there on the scope. I'm really struggling to do this one-handed. Or I should say left-handed. There we go. Well, you can see that very little of the 6 goes over top of the red line that I've got on mine. So that's the way you can tell if you have a line on your scope. The other way, like I said, is look at the 9. And you'll notice on this one it curves around and points at the D. All right, so we come around and boom, right there to the D. So we know we've got a small date. I'll separate these and see how many large dates versus small dates we have. I didn't think of it while I was going through it. It was something I kind of noticed towards the end. But very interesting. So really quickly, these were all of our large dates, and we ended up with 10, 25, 29 small date 1960 Denvers, which is more than I've probably seen in 6 or 7 years of looking at pennies. So pretty cool. I'll keep these out on the board as things we found, or at least things that are interesting, and keep on hunting. All right, well, I'm going to do something that's probably going to be a little controversial down in the comments, but I have a 1971 D roll from Fulton National Bank, full service banking for business and individuals, probably going to be a BU or AU roll here. There is a nice DDO on the 1971D that we'll look for in uncirculated condition. According to the Strike It Rich with Pocket Change book, that's a like a $10 to $25 coin. And I've got a roll of what says 1998s, and there is a wide AM that I think I've only ever found one of, so we're going to get into this roll as well and hope we find one. There's probably some of you screaming right now as I open this wrapper. And that is definitely an uncirculated roll. I'm just going to grab one out of here so we can have a look at it. I'll scope them off camera and bring it in if I happen to find one. But you can see we still have carbon spotting and stuff, even though this hasn't come out of a wrapper before. But the coin itself is in pristine condition. So very pretty. And we're going to do the same over here. This 1971D. And again, lots of carbon on the edges of these guys. Probably never seen any air before. You can see the reverse on there is absolutely gorgeous. And a nice 1971D on the face. So we're going to have some beautiful BU coins at the very minimum. Hopefully we get lucky and find a little mint error along the way. So we are well on our way through these pennies, and we are finding a lot of zinc. Over here I've got 2 cups full of zinc pennies. I kind of gave up on doing 90s and 2000s and just putting all my zinc in there. Our copper's filling up really nicely. Lots of BU stuff along the way, but this is our first variety that is a sure thing in the hunt. We found ourselves a rather beat up 2000 Lincoln penny, and we have ourselves a wide AM. If you can't see it from here, we'll put it under the scope. But typically the 98, 99, and 2000 are close AM coins, which means the leg of our A and our M are pretty much touching. Here you can see they're very far apart. So we've got the wide AM there. And the other way you can check is look down here on the F and the G. So the wide AM will have a close FG, and the close AM will have a wide FG. So the FG is actually further out here away from the building. So definitely confirmed. We've got ourselves a 2000 wide AM. Now, looking on PCGS.com, 2000, this is much more common than the 98 and 99. In this condition, not worth more than maybe 50 cents or $1, so not a huge find, but I'm happy to find something other than just some nice BU cents. So I just got into this roll. I knew I had a nice BU ender, but wasn't sure what to expect because we had the Monticello building, and I got them all pushed out, and it looks like we have an entire roll of 1959 Denver BU cents, which is pretty awesome. We'll be checking these for varieties and putting them in a nice tube because these are absolutely gorgeous. So we're finally nearing the end. I did come across another roll in 1960 and 1960D. This time we had a bunch of just 1960 Philadelphia large dates. We had a bunch of 1960 D also large dates, and just a handful of 1960 D small dates. That's not why I'm bringing you in. I had 3, and I think these were all large dates, but you can even see it under this magnification. We got 3 1960 Ds. I think most of these were small dates with a die chip filling the 9 on the date. So you can see right there, we've got a big old die chip in the middle. Now, I don't think this is going to make this coin worth a whole lot of money. That's actually going to be a large date on that one. Let's check the other one. But I still think it's pretty interesting. No, this one's a large date as well. You can see, again, we've got another hole filled there with a big die chip. And we've got one more. I'll put these aside. I'll hang on to these and label them as die chips, but nothing too spectacular. This is a 1960D small date. You can see the 9 pointing down at the D, and the 6 is completely full. So pretty cool. 3 little errors here in a 1960 roll of old copper. Well, we are down to our last 4 rolls of things that aren't marked, so I wanted to go ahead and get them open here live on camera. We've had tons and tons of rolls that have been mostly copper. We've had a fair number of rolls that were a little bit of mix of zinc and copper, but one thing has held true, that almost every roll has had coins from the 60s and 70s. We haven't seen any Wheaties. We haven't seen any Steelies. We haven't seen anything really earlier than 1960. And you can see in here we've got some, that's an 87D, so that's going to be a mixed roll. This looks like a mixed roll. It's a 1973, and you can see down in here we've got some zinc. Oh no, that's just a really nice 1977. So that's the other weird thing about these rolls, is we've had a good mix of kind of red and red-brown coins, as well as rolls of just lots and lots of brown copper. And most of the red stuff I've been putting up here, you can kind of see it there at the top of the screen. Like here, some Shield Cents, 2011, 2014. So another mixed roll here. And I've been keeping all this stuff separate. I've got all the stuff up here that was kind of red and interesting. And then I've got cups of everything else in the background, because I've been trying to keep track of my 60s, 70s, 80s, and then anything that was zinc. And our last roll, come on. There we go. Now this looks more like what a lot of those rolls have been. Basically a full roll of copper, and then the occasional super. Oh, there's a first 59 I've seen in a good long while. But like some red and red-brown stuff hiding in there as well. So, all right, well, let me start going through here. And again, if I find anything interesting, I'll be sure to bring you in. And this does look like a roll of 59s. So almost every one of these is a 59 or a 59D. So be sure to look out for that mule scent as well. Okay, see you soon. Well, that roll was all 59s and 59 Denvers with one nice red one in there. And now I've got to figure out how to wrap all this up, because we had a bunch of marked copper, a bunch of unmarked rolls that we've gone through, and most of the finds for that are up here on the table. And of course, we have to get through all of this weight. And what's funny is I had no 59s or earlier until that very last roll, but we got tons of 60s, almost 2 cups of 70s, a little bit of 80s, and a whole bunch of zinc. So let me figure out how I'm going to go through what we found and what we didn't, and I'll be right back. So I've decided it might be easiest to almost just go through this in reverse of the way I hunted it. So I emptied the cups that had basically the 1983s and older, so the copper-plated zinc. I got those all rewrapped. I've got $14.50 here out of that $75. And there's probably about 1, maybe 2 rolls worth of other copper-plated zinc that's over here in the list of either 2009 commemoratives or possible book upgrades. And I'm going to save the book upgrades for the end. And the books will be filling. I've already kind of looked. I know that, and I've got a bunch of books that I've gotten over the years. I have a set that I'm filling out on my YouTube channel, but I know we've got some upgrades in this book. I have the same book. This is the one that I'm filling out from my my YouTube channel series. And then these were books that I just happened to get in other collections that I bought, and there were definitely going to be some upgrades in these two books, or even book fillers. So we'll go through those at the end of the video, or the end of the wrap-up, because at least one of the books has a ton to fill in. So here's all those coins I was just showing. And then, of course, up here, we had a ton of really, really nice 2009 commemoratives. This is the formative years one, and we had, I believe, some 2009 Philly and some Denvers, and the same thing over here in the Capitol Dome. So I'm going to just leave those out, and we'll make sure we upgrade anything we have in any of the books we're filling. So that is the state of our copper-plated zinc. And now I'm going to go back through and count up all of our red copper, as well as some of the, like we had, I know we had some large date and small date stuff over here. And I'm also going to get at least a value on all of our 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s brown copper that was in those unmarked rolls. So be right back. Well, the next part of the cleanup was basically pulling the 1960D small dates that we had found, along with all the BU red or kind of red-brown stuff that was nice enough for me to pull aside separately. And this is all done by year. And I've gone ahead and done a full weight and value on all of the brown copper, and we're going to go through that together here really quick. But we did find a whole roll of BU 1959s, and they basically resembled something like this. They're absolutely gorgeous. They're 1959 Denvers. I did get a mostly red, I would say BU. There might be a couple in there that might be more of a red-brown, but beautiful 1970Ds. And I got a whole roll, or this one's actually only got 59 in it, of 1971D, and I've marked them as BU, and they were so nice that I even flipped them up. I think I brought you in earlier in the video for that, and if not, there it is. It's absolutely gorgeous. From there, though, it's, you know, I'm not going to name everything, but this is just to take you through to give you an idea of the years and the numbers that we're talking about here, but we got some gorgeous, gorgeous cents. That's our 59 through our 69. Down here as we get into our 70s. You know, I got a decent number of 71s. And many of these we got Phillies, Denvers, and San Franciscos. And there's a few that are maybe questionable. Like that guy's definitely red-brown, whereas some of these other guys are definitely more red. But that gets us all the way through 77D. And then we had a whole bunch down here, 78, some 78 Denvers, a ton of gorgeous 79s. And here's our 80s, 81s. And we had just a couple of 82s that read more red-brown. They're not great, but I didn't get a lot of beautiful 82s, at least in the unmarked rolls. So what does that look like for value? And I will do a total value at the end of the video, but this is everything that I just went through. If you care about the value in these things, I haven't done a full tally there, but we had $1.53 and 59s, I'm sorry, in copper value, $1.53. We had $17.16 in our 60s cup worth of copper. We had $28.18 worth of copper in that 70s cup, $6.70 in that 80s cup. When we add just those 60D small dates together, it was $1.47 in value. And of course, our BU red coins, I did include also these tubes. We got about $10.05, and like I said, I'll add all this up and we'll do a final tally at the end. But this is a ton of copper, ton of weight, and a lot of this stuff I'm going to keep aside and will be filling some book holes or being some upgrades. So let me clean off the mat here, and we're going to go to all the rolls that were actually labeled. And after I've sorted through all that, you'll have a quick look at what it looks like now that we're done. So we're going to have to do this in batches, but this was all the stuff that came out of marked rolls, and I did separate as I went through the marked rolls, again, the brown, the red-brown, and the sort of red BU, and I'll be doing them sort of brown, red-brown together, and then the red BU separately, but we had a couple of rolls of 59 Denvers that were complete brown. We did get a whole roll of 60D large dates, and when you see a number in here, it means that's that roll short. So I will be going back through our other brown currency and rounding out these rolls. But 61, 62, 63 Denver, some 64, 65, 66, 67. As you can see, we have a good run. Now in the 68 and the 68S, we did get full rolls of kind of red-brown ones, which those would be a little bit nicer. So if I need those to fill the books based on the previous list or previous lot you saw, I'll be pulling them from here. But we did have some 69s, D and S as well, and that S was short by a couple. As for value, I went ahead and did the same thing with those. We had 150s for $3.13 in copper and 693, if I did the math right, for $21.70 in copper. So that's our 50s and 60s and our brown and red brown. So here's all of our 70s after being gone through and rewrapped. And as the 650s and 60s, we will have some open rolls here because we were missing some. Like this one, we were 17 short on the 1973, 1 short on the 73 Philly. But you can see we pretty much have 70s, 71, 1D, 72, 73, 73 and D, a couple of 74 rolls. Coming on through here, lots of 76s and 77s, but the most was by far the 78s. Lots and lots of rolls of 78s and 79s. And as you can see, our 78, we were 6 short up there. So I went ahead and did the math on that one as well for our 70s in the marked rolls. And in this one, we had $14.08 or 1,408 pennies for a copper value of $44.08. And pretty much everything in here was brown except for a couple of rolls. The 70D, I got some red brown, and I think I had one other red brown roll in here. But this was all fun to go through, and the ones that were short, it was kind of interesting. They were either miswrapped with the wrong year, or perhaps they maybe had a red coin that I pulled out and stuffed in another place. But for the most part, whoever sorted these, you could tell they were doing their best. And what I think actually happened is they got bored and stopped there because many of these rolls, they could have made 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 more rolls of some of these years. So I'm excited to have gotten to go through these, and it is a ton of copper. So let's get to the 80s, and then we'll move on to the marked rolls and all the red/BU stuff we found. All right, and finally on the marked rolls, we've got the 80s and the brown and red brown. And there's only a couple of years, of course, the 1980 through the 82 we have to look at. But we got a fair number of 1980s. We did get a little bit in the red brown, and like some of the other ones, we had a couple of short rolls. We did end up with one 1980 red brown, which was kind of nice. A bunch of rolls at 81s. And then mainly large date 82s, and they were all 82 Phillies, at least in the rolled stuff. And I did find just a couple of one brown 1982 small date, and call it 7. We'll just say all those are red brown. That guy I'd probably maybe pull out and move him down here, but you get my meaning. These guys are all small dates. So that was all of the small dates we found in those marked rolls, which I thought was pretty crazy. As before, with our values, of course, our 80s there, we had 688 of them, 4.48 pounds, and $21.54 worth of copper. So let's get on to the really, really nice red BU stuff, and then we're going to move on to the books, or actually we'll move on to the couple of interesting finds that may be new. Well, some of them I know are numismatic, some are just questionable, and then we'll get on to filling the books. All right, so here was all the BU stuff. Forget about the zinc copper stuff that we talked about earlier in the video, but everything you see here on the mat is definitely from the red/BU stash, and I tried to put the BU stuff in nice penny holders because this is how I'll store it. As you can see, we had a 59D, 67, 69, 69D, S, 70, 71, and 72. And then we had a bunch of really nice red rolls from 59 and 69, 74 and 80, and then 80, 81, 82 on down. Now, we didn't have any 82 Denver or small dates. I'm sorry, we just didn't have any 82 small dates in here. I pulled those and counted those separately a little bit earlier in the video. So everything here is a large date. And I did miss 2 rolls that I should have included earlier as I went through the 70s and 80s. So I've counted those up separately and included those in some calculations. So before we do that, let's have a look just at what I say BU and red. So these are absolutely gorgeous pennies. Now, some may have some very small blemishes. They might not have been the BU tubes, but these were just really, really pretty red coins. or BU, and I've stored them accordingly. And there you can see that 82 large date. Now I did one more set of calculations there. So we had 895 pennies in BU red for 5.829 pounds and $28.02 in copper weight. Those two extra brown rolls, 0.615 pounds and $3.13 in copper. So pretty cool. Now you may be wondering, what does that mean for this entire haul? And I'll show you that now before we get into the books and the couple of numismatic errors that we found. But we have $59.64 in copper, or 5,964 pennies. And hopefully I did the math right and didn't miscount or double count anything. Or $186.73 in copper weight. Now, you can divine all this on coinapps.com by just putting in 5,964 pennies, and it will spit out the copper weight as well as the full poundage of pennies that we picked up just in copper. This, of course, does not include the zinc. So really, really nice haul. I'm really happy, if anything, just to have the copper weight. But let's go ahead and clear all this down and talk about the one or two kind of interesting little numismatic things we found, and then we'll move on to the books. All right, so on to the numismatic stuff. This one I know we spent a good deal of time on earlier in the video. This is a 2000 Lincoln penny. It is copper-plated zinc. It's not in the best of shape, but it is definitely the Type 2, wide AM, or close FG. You can see it here under this magnification, but I'll go ahead and put it under the scope so you can see it. In a typical 2000, the A and the M would be just about touching, and the FG down here would be really far away from the Monticello building or Monticello building, depending on the pronunciation you prefer. As you can see here, we are just about touching that building. So this is definitely a verifiable 2009 or a 2000 wide AM penny. Now on eBay, a coin in this condition probably only going to get $2 to $5. If this were red or BU, this could be like a $10 or $15 or $20 coin, or BU could actually be worth more than that, especially if it were graded. But that's something I'll flip up and hang on to. Now over here, we've got four of the same thing, and I think I covered this earlier in the video too, but the 69S, you always want to look for the strongly doubled Liberty in 1969, because that's about an $18,000 coin in circulated shape. Now, this is more a cautionary tale for you other coin roll hunters. Sorry, I got to jump over here. It's these four guys. And this one is beautiful, so this would be better than uncirculated if we happen to find that here. But I wanted to put it under the scope so you could see what I was looking at. And I have four really good examples of this. You can see we've got some slight doubling here in the 9, and I can't remember on this one, even here in the S. But this is very typical strike doubling as far as I can tell. If there's anybody in the community that disagrees with me, I would love to know, because I would love for this to be a very, very valuable coin. But again, here you see a little bit of sliding in the 6. And a little bit of sliding there in the 9. You've got a deep shelf right there rather than a truly doubled number. And I've got four of those, all in varying different conditions. We'll put this one under the scope as well. So you can see here that S is just kind of hit and slid. The same thing with the 9, the 6, and the 9 there. They all kind of look that same way. Let's just look at this last one, just because it was a little bit different if I recall. Whereas this S was actually sliding upwards. So you can see that's called strike doubling right there. So I wouldn't say there's any value in this coin because it can happen all the time. But anyway, if you guys disagree with me in the comments, or let me know in the comments down below. And then jumping over here, we've got some 1960 Denvers. And they're separated like this for two reasons. Both have die chips in the date, and I looked on eBay, and these can be worth a couple of bucks. They're all, well, I won't say they're all small date. This looks like it's a large date, but you can see our 9 is nearly completely filled, and the 3 of them that I had over here were all, and I'll see if you can see it here. Yeah, you can. That 9 is filled as well. All 3 of them had a filled 9. The reason this one is separate is because it had a filled 6. And this one is a small date, and you can again tell, I've covered this in a couple of videos now, when the 9 the loop points down here at the D, you know you've got yourself a small date. So we've got 4 of those. None of them are in great shape, and I did look them up on eBay. Off the cuff, I think they were worth a couple of bucks. I'll put a comp up on the screen for you. But kind of neat to hang on to. I'll hang on to all of these. I may flip them up just as these as nice examples of machine doubling. These as die chips, and of course we got our wide AM. So with that, this video I'm sure is very, very long, but we're going to go ahead and move on to filling up some albums. So this is our main penny album that we've been doing our main penny hunt and fill series on. And this book's already in pretty good shape. There's only just a handful of coins that really could use some upgrades. And you can see from here, we finally have a nice 77D to throw in there. What else did we have? We had a couple up here. A nice 1987 Denver we found. And a decent 1989. And finally kind of a more red 1991D. Unfortunately, we couldn't find that 1990D or the 98D anywhere in there for the zinc, but I really didn't look too hard at those. I just pulled this smattering that we went through earlier in the video, but I'm going to go ahead and get those punched down. We'll bring up the next album and we'll see what's new and what is a replacement. So these are 2 books that I got in a previous coin collection purchase on Nextdoor or something like that. I don't know if I've ever featured these on any one of my videos, but these books are in much worse shape. This is the 41 to 74, and I'll show you that in just a second. But here on the 75, we've got a lot of stuff in here, but a lot of really cruddy looking coins. Nothing too nice. But I am going to go ahead and see what can we fill in and what will be an upgrade. I imagine we'll have a fair number of them. But this isn't something I typically focus on. I just figured while I had all these nice new beautiful coins, let's go ahead and see what we could fill in. And really quickly in the 41 to 74 book, I'll show you this one just so I don't have to do it again. The main reason I was excited about this book is that it had some really nice looking 1943 Steelies in there. It does look like somebody has replated them, but they're very, very nice looking coins. And over here you can see we've got lots and lots of empty holes. And some coins that don't look too great. So looking forward to upgrading both of these books, and we'll focus on these 2 next. All right, well, here's all the upgrades and hole fillers for this book, and there are a bunch, as you could imagine, in the from 74 up through about 82. We had a bunch of upgrades. I'm not going to call them all out, but there were 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. As you can see, we still have some ugly ones. 13, 14, 15... 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. We're getting down here into some of the nicer zinc stuff I pulled. And then we have a lot of upgrades here in the 2000s. We were even able to take advantage of a couple of these commemorative year Lincolns that we found that I covered earlier. So let's get all these punched down and move on to the next book. Well, here we are with that, actually the second book first that I just showed you. And we've got, I can't even remember now, it was 3, 5, 9, 10, 11, either book fillers or upgrade. Really 1 book filler. The rest look like they're pretty much just upgrades. And unfortunately, actually, there were a few in here that were pretty nice. And even the ones in here were nicer than the ones that I found in this hunt. So let's get these punched down. The next book is going to be a drastic difference. And as you can see, this one is an oldie. I showed it off a little bit ago, and there's almost nothing in it. For our Wheaties, there's a couple plugged into page 1. And then page 2, if I can get this open, we got a couple plugged in here. And keeping in mind, our coins are going to start at 1959. And I believe this book is pretty much empty all the way through. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in as many holes as I can in here. Even with the brown stuff that I have, I'm not only going to try to just do nice pretty BU or red stuff. Well, here's a real quick look at that second book that was missing all of those coins, and I'm pretty sure I could probably fill out the rest of these holes, but I'm tired of looking for brown versions of them. I didn't have them in anywhere that was easy to find, and I quickly just scanned through the tops of both of those cups and didn't see anything, but we were able to fill out pretty much 59 to 75, and I even put a 60D small date in there as a variety because it doesn't need to go up to 75, but we're missing the 73D. I don't even remember if there was a 73S. And of course the 64D. And I just don't remember seeing a lot of those as I went through the coins the first time. So this album is much, much happier than it was before we started this hunt. Well, that's going to wrap it up, everybody. And as you can see, I literally have pennies everywhere, all over my desk. There are even some over here that I've pulled out of some books. And this is just a smattering of the coins that we went through. As you know, we went through $75 worth of pennies. And I'm super excited about all the copper. Now, I had no idea how big of an endeavor this was going to be when I got into it. But I'm kind of glad I did, because it really got me a lot closer to looking for those varieties and errors that are available in the pennies. But I would say, knowing this was a collection dump, I should have known that spending that much time on it was probably a little bit wasteful, because if this was truly a collector, they probably already searched through them. That said, hiding way back here in the back, I do have that 2000 wide AM, which I haven't found a wide AM in a long, long time. And those 69S's, I really wish they had been the double dies, but I do think they're just machine doubling, but it was still exciting to find them. And then, of course, we had those, I think it was the 1960 Ds with the die chips on them. So super happy to find so much BU stuff, and this is just a little bit of it. So that stuff will really go into the collection that I care about for pennies. The rest of this will just go in boxes wrapped as copper. And again, we found a ton of copper. I covered that earlier in the wrap up. So if you want to know the exact number, you can go back. But we had about $59 and some change. $59 like 64 cents in copper pennies, which is just a ton of copper. I've really enjoyed this video. I hope you guys did too. If you did, let me know in the comments down below. And if you hated it, that's cool. Let me know. Just be a little constructive in it. It's the first time I've done something quite this big and taken quite this long to get through it, because quite frankly, I had to scope about 6,000 pennies, and that just takes a lot of time. So if you're new to the channel and you like coin roll hunts, I do everything from half dollars to quarters to nickels to dimes. Make sure you click on that subscribe button and then click on that little bell and select all, so you get notified each and every time I do a new hunt. I don't spend a lot of time on pennies, and this one took me way, way longer than I anticipated, and it impacted my ability to get out more content than I wanted, or more content last month. So I do have a box of half dollars. My last 5 or 6 pickups have all been 2023 Philly, so it wouldn't have mattered anyway. And I do have some nickels and some other stuff to get through, so hopefully we'll get some videos going here shortly. So with that, I hope you guys are doing well. Take care, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.